Welcome to Cax Bar and Podcast, Canada's first podcast bar. What that means is you can come here for food, you can come here for drinks, you can also come here and record a podcast. Come on down, we're located in downtown Calgary, Alberta, in the Beltline area. See you soon. And we're rolling. I'm here today with Ferrell. Ferrell, how do you pronounce your last name?
Beleshko.
Beleshko? Okay. What is that, by the way?
Well, it's technically Ukrainian, but some would argue it's Russian, so it's in the Slavic
Isn't
zone.
that Slav? Okay, yeah. Okay. Perfect. I actually needed to do a little bit of homework for this one here. Short version, I met Ferrell over the summertime. He was walking by and he stumbled upon our bar. And right away we had a quick little intro and kind of a exchange a little bit of information. But Ferrell basically he's an entrepreneur. He's a head of business development for Copernic Space.
Copernic.
Copernic Space.
Copernicus, yes.
Okay. And wait, can you pronounce it again?
Copernic.
Okay, Copernic. Yeah, Copernic Space is an aerospace company. Okay, so actually, Ferrell, if you want to give the people a quicker intro here, then so I'm not just reading off my.
Yeah, no worries. So as you've stated, I'm head of business development for Copernic Space, which is an aerospace company, but we're really focused on the space economy. Well, everybody like Elon Musk and so forth is trying to lob stuff up into orbit and into the moon and so forth, which is really important for the space economy and where we're going with the science and ultimately manufacturing and eventually colonization. We don't have a lot of infrastructure thought through in terms of sustainability and economic activity, let alone the democratization of space, making it accessible for everybody. Mm-hmm. So that really is the mission of Copernic. And to create the marketplaces, both not just for business and for science, but also for art and culture. And ultimately to provide the ability for people to participate in the space economy, but not have to have millions and millions of dollars or billions of dollars.
Sorry, Ferrell, maybe I sound like a bit ignorant here, but are we talking about like Copernic it's planning for the future space economy that's inevitably going to happen kind of thing? Or what do you mean by...
No, the space economy is already happening.
What do you mean by that? Like people are in space right now and getting Starbucks?
We're not quite there yet, but that will come eventually.
Yeah.
So the space economy is actually very integrated into all the economies on the Earth. So one of the most prevalent elements of that is communications.
Sorry, I really want to hear you.
Sure. So communications is, no worries. So communications is really the biggest part of the current space economy. That's roughly $400 billion US. Mm. So everything that we do in terms of ATMs and anything to do with the computer, cell phones, et cetera, anything to do with the internet, it's space. Without the infrastructure in LEO, which is the low Earth orbit, and you've got the MEO, which is the mid-Earth orbit, and then you've got geosynchronous orbit. Without that satellite infrastructure and that aspect of the space economy, majority of the way our economies function would not function. So we have to have it, and we just don't realize that we're already involved in it. So when it comes to the space economy, we're all engaged in it one way or another. But the problem is that most people think that getting out into space is about getting onto rockets, or it's going to cost you billions of dollars, or you got to be an Elon Musk. And that's changing, and it's changing quicker and more rapidly than people realize. So, for example, we're going to the first Canadian astronaut that's going to go to the moon or go around the moon. His name is Jeremy Hansen, and that'll be happening sometime in roughly November of next year. That is another example of where we're going in terms of the space economy, that we're sending people back to the moon. We're actually intending, as not just in North America and Europe, but in China, the world, we're intending to actually colonize the moon and utilize it for commercial purposes, for research, for materials, for aspects of energy. You can just dive into all sorts of aspects of this, and we're heading in that direction. So in terms of the space economy right now, it isn't some fantasy. It's actually in play. So we've got commercial operations where there are companies creating private commercial space stations, and we'll get them into orbit over the next few years. Purposes will be for manufacturing, for research, yes, space tourism, but that'll be a small fraction of the economy. And what we're having right now in terms of the economy is people purchasing and or sending things up into orbit, whether it's an asset that's digital or physical. There are things that have been happening in terms of research for commercial purposes going to the ISS, or people utilizing space on a ride share on a node, whether it's on a satellite or at the ISS. And that commercial purpose then turns into some sort of translated commercial opportunity for the given organization or company that's taking part in that.
Okay, so are there right now? You basically said that there's already multiple companies getting ready to launch mini stations into orbit to you said basically essentially like start to have a habitat up there already? Are you saying people are setting up little stations and living up there?
Well, the one thing is the ISS is old. The ISS is ready to be retired. I mean, NASA and the partner organizations and countries could keep building on and doing things, but it's more cost effective in the long run to have commercial operations do these things. So, for example, one company called VAST out of Long Beach, California, is building a commercial space station and going to put that into orbit for commercial rent and purposes, for research and whatever the purpose that they want to use it for.
Yeah, like, okay, so just again, like, I'm the layman here. When you're saying commercial, like, are you saying they're literally up there, living up there? Well, obviously space. So you're like, how big? Okay, first of all, how big is ISS? Like is it size of like multiple buildings, or like it's a station, right? ISS.
Yeah, ISS has multiple modules. I don't know the exact number, but there are research modules. There's habitat for sleeping. And there's obviously some activity going on in terms of learning how to grow food and culture, whatever they want to research on. I would say that the ISS
is as big as the Bow building in downtown here.
Oh, from end to end, I'd say it's probably a little longer.
Okay, but the interior, like, how many people were up there at a time?
That I'm not sure, but I would imagine that there's a minimum of crew of 4, upwards of 6.
That's it?
That's it. Maybe a little more at times, but that's about it. Well, would be potentially when they're transitioning crews.
Like transition crews. What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that? When a crew goes up, another crew has to come up to either resupply. Sometimes it'll be an autonomous ship that would resupply, but when a crew goes up, and they come down, another crew is going up, and then they're switching vehicles.
Okay.
To come out.
Okay.
That's generally the protocol as I understand it.
Okay. And then as of right now, like, the idea, if there's all these private companies, they want to make more of these, not necessarily the same as ISS, but you're saying they want to make little mini colonies and kind of send them up there, like little colony stations to do a variety of projects and whatnot. Is that kind of what you're saying? A lot of this is happening right now? Because like, this is my first hearing about this. Sounds exciting.
So, for example, Bezos is in competition to some degree with Elon Musk, and one of Blue Origin, which is his company, Bezos.
Okay.
One of the main Amazon company. Yeah, one of the main objectives they have is to create habitat, orbital habitats that can be for their hotels or whatever. Wow. Yeah,
hotels up in space.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
So using a centrifugal force, you'd have it where there's artificial gravity to some degree.
Actually, I mean, I would have to see what you even do up there, because, like, oh wow, could you imagine we're up there like, yo, Ferrell, we're going to space hotel, but there's like nothing to do. I feel like, what was the point of that?
I would imagine with a structure like that, they would actually have things that you could do. Now, would there be the ability to do spacewalks and that? Potentially, but that's a whole different world of training.
Okay. Oh wow, you got my imagination going now. I just imagine like a little gymnasium, but we're doing like 0G dodgeball in there or something cool.
Yeah, suddenly you can lift 10,000 pounds.
Yeah. Well, yo, PRs, guys.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting things that are evolving in terms of ideas. Some of them are not necessarily practical at this time, but there are a number of projects that are in the works. There's money being invested. There's research being done. Guys like VAST. There's another one, I can't think of the name, NAPEX or something like that NASA just awarded a contract to also utilize what they're doing for a station. But the purpose of these is really whatever the business use case or research use case that makes sense.
Yeah.
That they choose to use it for.
Okay. And most of these projects, I take it, are more or less like altruistic projects, or are they military up there? I mean,
I'd imagine the military stuff. We can't even go there.
What do I mean? Well, I mean, wasn't Trump talking about like Space Force or whatever at the time when he was in office? Like, he literally was talking about like a space weapon system. You know, like well, do you remember him saying that?
Yeah. Well,
like, what was he even talking about
during the Cold War? During the Cold War, under Reagan, there was the whole Star Wars program. And the amount of research and development with groups like DARPA and the U.S. Air Force and the Navy and you name it, the technology that they've come up with is probably fairly science fiction-like. In terms of Space Force itself, it's a real thing, and it's a real organization. It's a branch of the U.S. military, and they're very heavily involved in space. In terms of their operations, well, you'd have to interview somebody from there that would be able to speak on their behalf, but they definitely are involved in the space.
Okay, but your role with a Copernic is essentially essentially like developing potential business avenues for the space economy and continuing the current space economy ventures that are up there already. Like so you have nothing to do with like the government potentially like American government or Russian government or whoever. Like you have nothing to do with like their attempt to secure their foreign policy up there kind of thing.
No, we don't have any direct relationship with that, but we do have advisors like a guy by the name of Kevin O'Donnell, who does have interactions with Congress and so forth, and he's fairly involved in the space community and in the governmental architecture. And one of his missions is to create an economic model that works effectively to deal with the space debris, which is becoming a bigger and bigger issue.
Okay, like what do you mean? Educate me on that.
Yeah,
I know nothing about space debris.
Yeah, well, space debris, some of it will come from launches, but the majority of it comes from satellites that are hit by micrometeorites, satellites that are shut down because they've run out of fuel, and there's actually ways of resolving that now.
How big are these satellites, though?
Some satellites would be the size of that desk. Others would be the size
biggest one.
I would imagine there are a few satellites up there about the size of a bus.
Okay, but that's it? And we're worried about that being debris coming into the planet? Like, that seems like a little moot
point. It's not so much about the debris into the planet. Those satellites that hit the atmosphere, they would, unless the angle is completely inappropriate, they would just burn up in the atmosphere. Like, for example, if the ISS was to come down, a good chunk of it would burn up, but a good chunk of it would actually hit the ground because it's just
how big's the ISS again? We talked about it's basically the Bow Tower, right?
We'll say it's roughly the size of the Bow building.
Yeah. Okay, but again, we're talking about the entire Earth. Like, I mean, what's the more than likely the debris would kind of like go into the ocean or something? I don't know.
Well, that depends on its re-entry point. Its re-entry point, if it's at the right angle at the right time, yeah, it could just go into the ocean. Yeah. We've had this. What was it? Space Lab or whatever it was in the 1970s or whatever, parts of it in the 80s came down and actually bits of it hit parts of the southern U.S.
Okay, but again, how big were these bits? Like is it any different than a big rainy day when you see a bunch of hail come down? I mean, like, you know, like it's
no,
like, what are we concerned about? Are we concerned about, like, you and I are, like, say you and I are going for a walk in the park and all of a sudden you're like, hey, Shawn, and then I get hit in the head with shrapnel? Like, is that what we're talking about?
I hope
like,
that doesn't happen.
But, is that what we're worried about? Like, I just kind of bit confused with that one.
Well, no, in terms of something like the ISS, if it came down in an uncontrolled descent in reentry, then yeah, parts of it could, like if it hit Calgary or hit New York or whatever, it could take out an office building. Or could,
wow,
sure.
Sure. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, the debris can be very, very deadly, but a good chunk of that structure would burn up. But parts of it would survive to the point that it would impact the ground.
Okay. So, do we need to start getting space debris insurance to
cover
our condos here?
No. So the space junk, in essence, the debris that's up there, and there's potential economic opportunity is to capture and repurpose the material. Mm-hmm. So one aspect of that is that one of the biggest issues with satellites was that it would eventually run out of fuel,
right, for
tasking and keeping itself in orbit and so forth. And there are companies, specifically one, which I can't name right now, but their whole purpose is to send up vehicles to refuel satellites to give them a longer purpose in life, or to keep them in stasis. But
these satellites use what kind of fuel sources?
The fuel source, is it
like gasoline? Like, are we actually firing gasoline?
Really, all you need is oxygen. You just need something that can be a propellant out. It could be water, but water would freeze. So hydrogen or oxygen are usually, from my understanding, the best propellants.
Okay.
There can be other variants to that because you don't want your propellant freezing.
Like when you say, like you're talking about, say we had a little space pack in space. It's like I hit this button to move around. It's just literally blasting water out into space so I can propel forward.
It's blasting a gas.
A gas, yeah, to move my body out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I mean your journey into this realm of work. Are you very like, are you super smart now with regards to like how space works and everything? Like,
no, I'm not going to profess that I'm super smart to it. And it's interesting. I'll have conversations in places and audio spaces like Twitter X audio or Twitter spaces, and just in general in conversations or even business meetings. I'm always learning something new. And
because you didn't go up to space yourself, you're just rubbing shoulders now with astronauts and businessmen
to a degree. Yeah. And the overwhelming majority of people that are involved in the space economy and the space sector have not gone to space, obviously. Because there are tens of thousands of people globally involved in this. So am I super smart to it? I'm learning something just about every single day.
Yeah.
And in terms of my knowledge base compared to you or others, I've got a lot more. But compared to, Jeremy Hansen, for example, he sits in the room here. He'd schooled the living crap out of me. So it's a matter of awareness and being involved.
Okay. Well, either way, me talking to you is like a student talking to a sensei because of the lack of my daily living diving into space economy. But I am a sci-fi nerd, and I love Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I'm a big Trekkie, and but how like based on your real life experience now with what you do for work, it's like do you watch Star Trek first and foremost?
Oh yeah, it was Trekkie, Star Wars, and science fiction.
Okay, cool, perfect. So how far off are they in their storylines and their technological portrayals and everything?
Well, okay, I thought you might bring up the Star Trek thing. So here's an example. Back in the 1960s, we had Star Trek, and we had the flip communicators and so forth. Interesting thing is that the engineers that created the Motorola flip phone and so forth, they were huge Trekkie fans.
Oh, shit.
So their inspiration came from science fiction.
Okay. And
so a lot of the technology that we're starting to have and develop has come from the imagination of creative writing.
Okay. And those guys, I mean, wait, was the original Star Trek before the moon landing? When did the moon landing happen again?
I believe 69.
Okay. Wasn't that before? So they were basing all their technological imaginations just off of their imagination, and somehow 60s, it kind of ballparked somewhat accurately, almost. Do you kind of know what I mean? Like it's like if they had no concept of physics, then they'd be making because to me Star Wars is pure fantasy because like none of their ship models seem to have any real life physics. Relations,
Well, yeah, not physics as we define physics, but as we go along.
Well, what the hell powers their X-wing, as an example? Like, are they using diesel fuel or regular gasoline? Like, you kind of know what I mean? I'm like, you're telling me this guy's
crystals.
Yeah, what? Like, it's I'm sure some Star Wars nerd would educate us on that, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, like, what are we talking about here? At least Star Trek, every detail of their storylines, with the exception of the Star Trek Discovery and all these other newer, not as awesome shows, but they're very logical in how they explain this works, and because like Star Wars, everyone just speaks English universally somehow, right? But except for certain planets. But in Star Trek, they talk about the universal translator. They made it clear, like when people go to the Federation or any other anyone who's in the Federation's territory, everyone had a universal translator implanted into their brain, which is literally the same as our Google Translator, but now it's in your brain, and it's like that's why everyone can talk, and like at least they explain these glaring holes in realism versus imagination.
My understanding in the Trekkie universe is that it wasn't actually an implant into the mind, though that actually could be possible, especially now, but it was actually the communicator.
So maybe I'm okay. So maybe I'm screwing things up because it was like, remember DS9? Do you remember that episode where Quark and the Ferengi were trapped
in the ears,
and then they kept hitting their head because they're like, "Fuck, the universal translator must be broken," and they're hitting their head. Like I didn't realize that the original series they said is from their badge. That was actually universal translator.
Well, I caught that. I mean, you're gonna end up getting comments on this.
my Star Trek nerds. Yeah, I always thought that it was a. I could have swore I saw in one episode. It was something. It was before Kirk's time. I think it was even in Archer's series, the Enterprise, like the Enterprise show. They already developed universal translators, and it was like if you're in the Federation, like it's kind of like your first year freshman university. Like it's like okay, like you're going to get your little syllabus for your classes. Oh, also here's your universal translator. It's like,
I remember seeing that in the Archer or the Star Trek series with the whole Archer thing, and it was near the tail end of the series where they were whoever the engineer was had created a translator.
Oh, okay.
And they had a device.
Okay, there's been so many shows, so it's like
yeah. So, but the thing is, we have that now.
Yeah.
Google Translate and other versions of that, and now with greater and greater step into artificial intelligence, and for better or worse, general artificial intelligence. So it's interesting how our imaginations have been inspired by creative thinking, creative imagination.
Almost all technology stems from an imagination put into reality.
Absolutely.
So it's like, I mean, because we can sit here all day and theorize how we think we need things to work like this for like the internet. Like someone pictured this idea of like, you know, getting loads of information from some kind of digital source, and then they put it into action and made it happen, right? Like,
and that was all stemmed out of wanting to share data between universities, which was actually really a military intention ultimately, and then was adapted for that. But then commercialized.
Yeah, well, same thing. I mean, like Zuckerberg. I mean, the Social Network movie. He essentially made it because he wanted to get laid. It was just like
he was pretty pissed off that he got denied.
It was just a college social program, and that turned into like spearhead into. I mean, look at podcasting. Like, no one even discovered it's, like. Why would someone pay attention to a conversation? It's like, think about it, Ferrell. If we didn't have a podcast, like when we've sat down and chatted like this,
we wouldn't.
Like, that's why podcasting is amazing.
We know each other and we're hanging out having a beer.
Yeah. But even having a beer, we wouldn't be talking about it in this context, in this style. Like you and I would be chatting about it, but we'd be distracted by whatever. But like this, we're in this intimate setting where I'm literally like, tell me everything about Copernic and the space economy and how, like, and I got more questions, by the way, but
just fire them away. But that's a powerful point in terms of the internet. I wouldn't be involved in the space industry and the space economy in the capacity I am, and my evolution and growth into it that will happen over the coming months and years, if it wasn't for the internet. And interestingly enough, if it wasn't for the pandemic, because during the pandemic we all got locked up.
Yep.
And a lot of us were bored. Didn't have anything. Like all my software development contracts with the energy sector here just suddenly, literally the next day after Trudeau shut things down in Canada, they literally said, yeah, we're shutting all our projects off. We'll talk to you in a month or two and we know what's going on. So all of us were bored. And I get this text from my brother who was working for Amazon, still is. And I don't think he was working at Amazon that day when he sent it, but he sent a text to me, and it was an invite to an application called Clubhouse. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No.
Okay, so Clubhouse was a company out of San Francisco that was trying to create a competitive product to LinkedIn. To create networking for business and so forth. And what their intention was at that time, and it was really great for the time they did it this way, you could only invite people. You couldn't just go download the app and use it. So the intention was to get people of influence, doing quality things in business, music, whatever, and invite people, are going to bring substance to the audio spaces, to the platform.
Interesting.
And it is amazing the kinds of conversations I got into. I mean, I got to talk with Arlene Dickinson on a regular basis in these audio spaces.
Who's that again?
Arlene Dickinson is one of the dragons from Dragon's Den.
Oh, okay.
And I met a lawyer by the name of Jerry Riskin, who ironically grew up a few blocks away from where I grew up in Edmonton, but I had no idea he existed. He lives in Anguilla, and he runs around saving law firms globally. He's that kind of lawyer.
Okay.
And I met musicians. I've met actors and directors that I never would have met.
And your brother had this connection just from working at Amazon?
He got invited because of stuff that he did, not because of Amazon, but stuff he did in Vancouver before he moved back to Calgary. And long story short, why I brought that up is that within Clubhouse, I got to meet people that were starting to do this kind of stuff. And then one thing led to another. And then I came across Grant Blaisdell, who's one of the founders of Copernic Space. And he's like, dude, I need people like you. I need you to come work with me. I need you to help me build this.
Holy crap. You literally swerved in this entire line of work, not accidentally, but kind of, well, there's, I don't know what you believe in spirituality stuff, but I don't think there's accidents.
I do. There's no such thing as a coincidence.
Yeah, like whether you believe in a spiritual aspect or a scientific one, like who knows? Maybe you projected into your mind. You're like, you know what? So I'm ready for a change, and then maybe like everyone's just like, woo, like, oh, okay, I'll invite this guy, and then from here, because like these moments happen in my life too all the time, where auspiciously you just meet the right person at the right time when you signal to the universe you need it.
Yeah,
whether it's just simply wording it or thinking about it.
These synchronicities all the time.
Yeah,
and if we put our intention there and we trigger what people are often calling manifestation, you invite that.
Yeah, because like you might have manifested this because it sounds like you're super passionate about this.
I've always loved space.
Yeah,
and I've always loved really innovative tech and really innovative business ideas. I love aspects of ideation, coming up with a solution and implementing that. So yeah, I think in a roundabout way, I definitely did.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. To be honest, I have a variety of passions, but the Star Trek love has always been because when I first I was young when I started noticing Star Trek, and like literally when I say young, I was like maybe even like 3. Like some of my earliest memories was like I remember being like, hey, what is this? Seeing Captain Picard on TV and stuff, and I just remember being insanely like even as a young kid, before I had the words to articulate my thoughts, I realized that's it right there. That's the standard of society. Like I'm like, what's better than that? Like in that world, like I remember just like everyone has this collective goal. I swear I was thinking this as a kid. I just couldn't express it. I just remember being like, this is important. Everything else we're doing is not important. Like that's what's important. Like pooling together all of our collective experience to go into space and explore the rest of the galaxy, Well,
exactly. I mean,
what's more important than that?
And especially what's going on in our world right now.
Yeah,
we need things that unite us as a species, not divides us.
Yeah,
and going into space,
like space, from what we understand, is vast. It's endless, right? Is space infinity in theory?
As far as we know, within this universe, it is infinite because we don't know the true construct of what makes up the universe in terms of its barriers.
True. Yeah. Well, I remember that episode of Star Trek Next Generation where I forget. I think Riker woke up with amnesia. I forget. Okay, like there's been so many episodes, but long story short, he asked his computer. He's like, "Okay, I got a question here," because he needed to figure out what the hell happened to him. But he's like, "This is how I know if the computer's broken or working properly." He's like, "Computer, tell me how big the universe is." And he's like, "Watch, like the answer needs to be like cannot compute or something." And it's like, "Oh, the universe is X amount of miles long." Right. And he was like, "What?" And he's like, "Computer, what exists outside of the barrier of that?" Then the computer was like, does not compute. But Riker's sitting there saying like, "No, we have the alpha quadrant, the like delta quadrant, the gamma quadrant, like that alone." We're talking about like, well, he didn't reference Star Trek Voyager yet, but Star Trek Voyager, like they went so far through that wormhole that it took them 72 Earth years traveling warp 7 to get back to Earth. That's how far out they were. And then that computer was saying like the universe is X amount of miles, like So it's like from what we know, and even the Star Trek lore maybe has some. The Star Trek lore is very thought up by humans. It's weird how I talk about it like it's actual history, but it's like the space, from what we understand, is infinite. From what we understand.
As far as we understand.
Yeah, like it keeps going and going and going and going and going.
And there's even debates now whether or not the Big Bang even actually occurred. Because there's
who even theorizes? Okay, who theorized the Big Bang again? Or what was the group?
I'm not
like, how are they so sure?
I'd have to look that up. So I don't know that fact.
But how are they so sure? Like what I mean
it was theoretical.
Yeah,
mathematical. And we live in a harmonic universe. So everything math tends to prove things, or at least gets us further down the road. But then we start to find out things, and Stephen Hawking was great at breaking this. But as we go further in our mathematical understanding and further into the science of things, we hit walls and we realize, wait a minute, our thinking was wrong. This is actually now a new reality. This is a new possibility. This is actually the truth.
Yeah.
That's a part of science. And science and creative thinking and theology are starting to hit a wall right now.
Science and
creative thinking as well as theology is starting to hit, I shouldn't say a wall, they're starting to hit more and more frequently.
Science and theology,
or science fiction and pure science, and theological thinking, such as religions, obviously.
Yeah.
We're hitting those crossroads. They're intersecting more and more and more. where they're no longer a competition with each other. More and more frequently, they're in parallel with each other, or they're partnered.
Yes. Well, or they're noticing correlations.
Yeah.
Like excessive amounts of correlations. It's like, because like, look, someone can say, okay, I don't believe in religion, I don't believe in God, but then miraculous things happen in their life that they're like, okay, like that, like how did that? I don't know, like I don't know, like someone who survived the most improbable near-death experience or something, right? It's
Right.
like naturally they will then think, okay, scientifically, really, like I was the 1 in 1 million that survived that plane crash or whatever, and then it's like, well, then that person might default to, okay, maybe there's a God or something that but then the person who always believed in God will all of a sudden have science to all of a sudden solve his understanding of whatever hurdle he was trying to overcome, and then be then all of a sudden all this time I was thinking about God when it was just me needing to work harder or something. I don't know. Like,
or at least from my perspective, it's not necessarily that it's solving it. It gives steps of greater clarity.
Yes, steps of greater clarity.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's also like, what does it matter if you're understanding it from this angle or that? You came to the same conclusion. Like it's like it, like my real question is just more about predicting things, because isn't that what science is? Able to predict things accurately. 1 + 1 = 2. That's science. That's math. Okay, next piece of like it's when you start to default to theology or religious stuff. It's because it's beyond your abilities to predict and accurately control what happens next. So then you have to kind of like control your anxieties and emotions through an imaginative faith, if you will. But then oftentimes that imaginative faith works out, and that's when you correlate it back to religion. Maybe there's a God.
Yeah, it's interesting how belief and faith will over time eventually get proven.
Yes. Yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah.
And there are still a lot of aspects of that as societies around the world we're heading to that direction. But the more we get familiar with our universe and with our world and with ourselves, the more we start to see that faith of things. I mean, suddenly we're talking about religion, but it's becoming more and more true.
Yeah. Or well, when you say true, it was like, look, you and I weren't there. We didn't actually see Jesus on the cross. Okay, so like we're going off of people telling us that happened.
I've been back then, but
so like, but we're either believing or assuming that something of that nature did occur, and it was a miraculous situation at that time that had a profound effect on everything that is after. But I don't know. But as an example, it's like, all I know is this: with my man, we were totally like in the weeds here. But
no, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
But
we'll turn it all back.
Yeah. But this bar came from me and my partner, and the others who began it, but ultimately it's just me and my partner right now. But we literally pictured it, and like we knew nothing about how to start a business. Okay. And through step by step, just through deciding like we're gonna do this, the answers just start coming. The right people to me start showing up. That's why I'm like, how's that science, man? That's totally some element of spirituality and law of attraction and manifestation, which I've done my whole life anyway. So
let me take a crack at that. And, this is kind of the exposure that I've had to things, but also had this kind of thinking before I got involved in the space sector stuff. Ever heard of the term quantum accomplishment?
No.
Okay.
I hear that word quantum all the time now.
Yeah. So the quantum realm and Marvel and all that's played around with that a bit.
Yeah. It's also Marvel trivia night.
Yeah.
Like Cast Marvel podcast.
Yeah. So quantum thinking, quantum computing, the quantum reality of things. And we believe as a species that we live in a linear path. But if we take ourselves outside of our human way of thinking, our world and universe isn't quite as linear as we think.
No, I never thought things were linear.
Well,
like okay. Right now, I think simultaneously there's like multiple realities just interfacing with each other. I feel like, okay, it's like a roommate. Say you have 5 guys in a room sharing a house, but they can't see each other. But we're perfectly dodging each other at the right times. That's what I think is happening with our realm. Like I think there's multiple things going on at once, but every now and then when you see like a just a chaotic series of events, it might be because our realms are like car crashing with each other. It's because existence. We have I'm literally I know my existence from seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, and then acknowledging I have a consciousness, and then if you have more experience with your consciousness, like as opposed to a child or an animal to a human or an adult human like myself, like then you have those moments where you separate your consciousness and then not give in to that initial reaction or behavior, which is what we call an ego, right? It's like you like all of that, but that's still like what you told what the numbers, that's like 8 senses. There's got to be a whole other realm of existence that doesn't require any of those senses, like they're probably happening around us. There's probably a telekinetic world existing simultaneously with our Earth.
Well, we know mathematically that there are multiple dimensions, and I believe the current argument with most of the scientific community that deals with this is that the belief that there's 11 dimensions or something to that effect.
Oh wow, 11,
even
that
CERN,
exact
even
number,
CERN, you familiar with CERN in Europe?
No.
Okay, well CERN's a massive hadron collider. Like we're talking kilometers in its diameter and circumference, and they're using it to smash particles together and to create all sorts of anomalies, to dive deep into this kind of science and to discover, is there other sources of energy, other dimensions, other realities. And I haven't read the white papers lately, but I'm sure that they've come up with some pretty fun stuff. Mm-hmm. My train of thought here was that with respect to where I was actually, my head was kind of floating, was that you're bringing up this stuff about other realities and so forth and what we don't perceive. And I was bringing up quantum. Well, the whole near-death experience, which I think you brought that up slightly earlier, and then we have these stories of ghost stories and apparitions and paranormal events and so forth. Well, in all reality,
for some,
but in all reality, that is in essence another reality intersecting with us.
Well, you kind of, again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but you're kind of like, well, we're kind of assuming then that dreams is just another reality, right?
Well, if you go to a lot of First Nations cultures around the world, some will argue that what we're doing right now is actually the dream, and the dream state's the reality. That's the real world.
I've heard that too. But that's so bizarre because, like, how many, like, again, I don't know how you sleep. I don't know how I sleep. I don't know what you see when you close your eyes and go into your sleep consciousness, and how consistent that experience is every time. Because like even going to having some beers, having a cigarette, and then going to bed, there's a completely different dream experience than being super tired naturally and having a good workout. And like, so it's like even that I'm like, hey, well, I don't know, but and then you see correlations of what you're dreaming about all of a sudden happen 2 days later in your real life, and you're like, oh. But then some days you have the worst sleep where the dream is a nonsensical fantasy with a bunch of hedonism that absolutely has no bearing to reality. Like, so I don't know where we can pinpoint that theory is a correct one, because I know that I have different ways I manipulate my dream state depending on what's going on in my life. Like it's like as an example, I'm big into training, and you seem like you keep in shape as well. It's like when you have a big gym day and your testosterone kind of boosts, and then you hang out with the boys, and like, I don't know, and then say you I don't know, say you're just dreaming about girls in bikinis in the beach. You're doing that probably conscientiously. So like, how's that an actual other reality? Well, there's other days when you let loose and the dreams just have this whole other shape, and you're like, hey, maybe that's a real other place. I don't know.
Well, having those cognitive dreams where we're diving ourselves into that has a lot to do with what we're paying attention to. It's interesting what you said in terms of training and dreams and so forth. For example, I just had a conversation with somebody about this today. Last night, I worked out early yesterday morning. Last night, I didn't work out. Went to bed really relaxed. Woke up this morning like I had just been beating up a bear. I literally was just, my whole body was sore, as if I'd been training all night.
Like you trained 2 days ago.
Okay, well, that would have been yesterday morning.
Still,
last night
within the 48 hours, you had a good training session.
I had a good training session.
Was
around
it really
6
good?
in the morning.
Was it intense?
It was intense.
Okay, so you might have had DOMS.
Well, possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
DOMS for people is called delayed onset muscle soreness.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so maybe we scratched that theory.
Yeah, maybe that's all you have is DOMS.
Yeah, it could be. But the thing is, though, if we have very, very active dreams, our bodies will respond. So that could be a manifestation of that. But we've dived way into all this. So what I was going for in the quantum aspect of things is that quantum thinking and the quantum accomplishment, the whole idea is that you know how you'll have a goal and you'll envision a goal. If you're an athlete, I don't know if you play any sports, but
I play those sports growing up.
Okay, so like hockey, everything was like we had to manifest in our heads what the game was going to be like, what we're going to do, and the plays and so forth. We had to literally memorize the living crap out of things. And ultimately, what a goal is an intention, but an accomplishment is an achievement. So in the whole quantum way of thinking, you, as best as you can imagine, you get rid of the linear and you think and see all the possibilities of everything. And it's a matter of choosing what already exists and stepping into it. So going back to what you were saying about the bar and what you guys visioned, well, in an arguable way, in the way that I'm thinking here, is that you guys had a quantum understanding of what this is because you already saw it existing within your imagination.
Yeah, there was a law of attraction thing that happened on my end anyway.
Right.
Like, because my partner was like Cax is, I don't know, like if I told you, so I'm the S in Cax, Cass is the K, and we had two more partners, so that's why it's Cax Bar and Podcast. Ultimately it's just being cast now, but he's the true restaurateur. He just wanted to open a bar restaurant, and I remember like in my brain, I'm like, bars, restaurants have been done a gazillion times. Like this is like don't get me wrong, we could probably make some money, but more likely we'll just have another bar restaurant lost in the shuffle of bar and restaurants. But I remember I love podcasts,
right?
And like I've been listening to podcasts since 2009 when I stumbled upon Joe Rogan's first podcast, and I love the concept of talking to people like this and actually connecting and really getting to know someone and learn what they're learning. This is almost like a one-on-one lecture from a professor, in a way, right? Like it's like, and I love that podcasts are conversations, not interviews, although there's an interview-esque element to it. But either way, I remember that I dreamt, I pictured, I was like, how's this come together? But the answer came to me so naturally that I thought there had already been done podcast bars. I was like, this idea, I'm like, there's no way I created this idea. Just now I'm like merging a bar with a podcast and then, but when I found out with the first one, I was like, interesting. But that came from an imagination, just like someone who invented the wheel, someone who invented the plane. But that imagination, it was, I can definitely say that I forced out that vision. And it didn't come to me. I'm well, it did probably come to me, but I there's times when you relax and you let something come to you.
Right.
But this one, I remember it was almost like a formula. I'm like, there's something here. Podcast, bar. And at first I thought have a studio off premise that references a bar. Then all of a sudden I'm like, why not have the studio in the bar? Then all of a sudden I'm like, why not rent out the studio? Why not people drink and talk? And then it's like, but that I remember I definitely forced the idea until it manifested clearly in my head, and then we went for it.
And the interesting thing is we're so interconnected in this world because of things like the space economy, because of communications and the internet and Instagram and all these things. And for better or worse, the social media, all these creative influences come in to help us trigger our thinking to be innovative. Mm. And you were taking those pieces and putting them together. But dollars.
Oh, sorry. Go, keep going.
I was going to say dollars to donuts. The reality is that when you were thinking that, somebody else was.
Yeah.
But you've gone and done it probably slightly quicker than somebody else.
Yeah, I've had a lot of feedback like that. So many people were like, "Oh, that was my idea," and I was sitting there thinking I thought it was done already. I didn't even think it was my idea. I had to start doing it because I literally was so naive. When I was doing the nuance report to figure out when we incorporate our company and I end up talking to the government chick who was just it's like, okay, sorry. He's like, I'm getting confused. Like, are you a bar business or a podcast business? I was like, well, one thing, a podcast bar. Look up podcast bars. She's like, well, there's none, man. You're the first one, I guess. I was like, oh.
Well, I don't know if you're part of the conversation we had, but when I walked in here that day, and you guys hadn't been open for maybe more than a month.
Yeah.
The closest I've seen to this kind of thing is Nova in LA, and Nova didn't do it this way.
Yeah.
And they've been struggling. They're getting better. I don't think they've gone out of business, but they did an auditorium style where there's a stage, and they'll do streaming of presentations and podcasts per se. Yeah. And they also have a co-working space. So that's kind of cool, but it wasn't this.
Yeah.
This is unique.
Yeah, but and I realize it is, and I like our whole intro was like, welcome to Cax Bar Podcast, Canada's first podcast bar. But I'm starting to realize it might be the world's first podcast bar. I really think it is. But but either way, the thing though is that a lot of people they podcast out of a bar, but not have a studio in a bar and combine it, but I don't know, but that again, that idea, I remember it, I remember there's difference between manifesting as in you're trying to force a manifestation and then just asking and then letting the ideas come to you through who knows what sources. But I remember this one, I remember hammering it because it was it was like a writer being like, or joke writer or a poet. It's like, I'm just missing one word that makes the rest of this rhyme, or I need an ending to this story. Like it's right here. It's like, or like, I remember that was the kind of creative process I went through. I remember like it was day and night, because like laying in bed, like with my girl, and I'm looking up and she's doing the classic, like, what are you thinking? And I'm sitting there like, I can't even, like, I'm like, I have this business idea, but I'm like, it's so close. Yeah. And I know it's simple. And then finally, it just finally ding, like,
yeah.
One morning woke up, I'm like, hey guys, I got it. Like, this is what we're gonna do. Like a bar with a podcast booth out of it. Originally, I thought of it as a booth, not a full studio. And then turned into this. So
that's a bit of a singularity, and then those moments are beautiful. They're awesome.
Yeah.
And a lot of amazing things happen. Some of the best things in human history have happened that way.
I think every best thing in human history has happened that way. Like, it's like even the space economy. It's like, so, like, you think people are like, you know what? It's like, man, there's just no more ways to make I don't know, like the coolest house. It's like, and then someone was like, why not a house in space? You know, and someone's like, what?
Yeah,
you know, that's how it starts, right? And now we have this.
There's brilliant things going on. Like we've got you know, one of the biggest issues on this planet right now is access to resources. And there's this massive push to go into green technology.
Access to resources, not the resources itself. It's the access
to the resources.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. So one of the biggest pushes is to go as green in the environment as possible, especially with energy.
Yes.
So electric cars and all our technology and all that. But the misunderstanding a lot of people have is that, we just can go grab the materials we need. Well, sure, but how do we do it without destroying the planet in the process?
Yeah. Oh, hey, you wanna get a bunch of green stuff? You still need a machine to get the green stuff. That thing's probably fueled by gas.
Well, we need cobalt.
Mm-hmm.
We need silver. We need gold. We need copper. We need all those materials. Cobalt is one of the toughest ones to get, and one of the key places in the world is Ghana. And Ghana could end up being, everybody's worried about World War III. Well, that could be a powder keg moment where all the powers that are involved, not just countries but corporations, decide to go at it for the control of that completely.
Isn't that the same thing with Taiwan and the chips?
Yeah. I mean, that's whoever thought it was
Taiwan literally make all the chips that power all the technology.
That's changing, but they still are the masters at it. And that's another reason with the space economy, getting below 2 microns and down to 1 micron. Is it micron or nano micron? I think it's microns. In order to really get to where we want to go, we'll eventually have to be developing the microprocessors in orbit or in a low gravity to no gravity environment, especially a vacuum environment. So space is a perfect place for that. But when it comes to the resources, going back to the green energy side of it, ultimately, to really treat our home as the jewel as it is, we have to stop taking the resources from the planet and go outside the Earth.
Look for the resources out there.
Yeah, the asteroid belt is one of the most brilliant places to do it. The moon to a degree, but we don't want to go and destroy the moon completely.
You know, I totally get what you're saying, Ferrell, because it's a lot like, just like any we're talking about like magnificent shift in culture.
Yeah.
We're talking about like say back in the day, you had a bunch of people in Europe being like, man, like we're running low on food, like, you know, the weather's shit, we can't cultivate plants, and we can't, you know, like there's not enough good animals breeding, so we have more protein sources. And all of a sudden one guy was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go out in the ocean there and explore. And then it was like, you're crazy, man. Like, we know the god of thunder's out there gonna fucking smite you. And he's like, I don't know, I'm going for it. And all of a sudden you realize, holy shit, like instead of mining all that, like squeezing out already dry orange, which is your European continent, you're like, you know, stumble upon North America and America. Now you have all these resources. Like, we're basically recreating that, but now into space, you know, because space is, like, from what we understand, super vast. So it's like, no, I think all I'm trying to say is, like, this was an inevitable next move for humanity. And it's also probably the best, like, not best, but it's a necessary move.
It's a necessary for the survival of our species. And even Elon Musk talks about that and how we have to go beyond. And everybody that's paying attention thinks about it, that we have to go beyond our Earth to keep our species going and to save our planet. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of the mistakes we've made here and not repeat them when we go out.
But almost all science fiction has like ultimately shown. I mean, because at the end of the day, like, what is Star Trek? Star Trek is just Earth's history now in space, and the Federation is the U.S.
or the UN.
UN,
finally getting along.
You
and doing
know what I
stuff.
mean? Like, so, like, I mean, like, but in that show anyway, I mean, I think it's inevitable. I mean, but again, we have no concept of what's out there. I mean, we keep thinking, I mean, I forgot who I was listening to recently saying, like, no, like, there might be other, space is vast, but we actually might be the only planet sustaining life right now. And
It's impossible.
Like, okay.
I know that people are going to argue that,
Yeah.
oh, no, we have no proof and all that. But, okay, first off, we know that there are 10,000 solar systems with planets that are potentially habitable.
And they have their own suns and everything like that.
And that's just what we've figured out.
So there's like no one living in these places.
Oh, there has to be
there has to be
civilizations out there. There has to be life.
But are
understand.
they humanoid? Are they corporeal?
They could be. Who knows?
They could be plants.
Yeah, there could be twins of us running around out there, for better or worse.
Well, hold on, there's twins of me. It's called China. We all look the same. So
okay. All right, fair enough. But we know the building blocks of life are out there, because we know, for example, Titan has methane, seas and oceans of it.
Mm.
So either that's from biological, or is it abiotic? But regardless, what we thought was the dinosaurs, well, actually hydrocarbons exist beyond Earth.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there's carbon and water in the asteroid belt. Bennu, which was one of the asteroids we just got a sample back from, has water and carbon on it. That's the building blocks of life.
Yes. So do you think these civilizations are just kind of like hiding in the crevices of these asteroid belts? Like
civilizations that exist within the galaxy and the universe are either where we are, and they can't communicate or travel the way we think they can, or they're so advanced that they don't pay attention to us because we're so below their capabilities that we're like an ant to them.
And we're back here. Sorry, I had to go take a quick pee break. That's why Ferrell all of a sudden has glasses on.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I didn't get a whole lot smarter.
Yeah. But well, the way I'm chopping clips is, they're just gonna see all of a sudden you have glasses on. Like,
what the hell? Like, I'm just doing this because I'm technically, I think, blind without this. Because okay, that's blurry.
Okay.
All right. So, all right. So what we're talking about in terms of really the possibility of civilizations. Why aren't we talking to them and so forth? I mean, for all we know, we just don't know.
Well, we left off on perhaps there's civilizations out there that are so advanced that they don't pay attention to us, like kind of like we don't pay attention to ants and stuff.
Right. So there's something called the Fermi paradox. And in the case of the Fermi paradox, it's a discrepancy between the lack of conclusive evidence of advanced extraterrestrial life and the apparently high likelihood of its existence. So the assumption is that ultimately, the assumption is, for a lot of people, is that we're the most intelligent species on the planet.
The dumbest people assume that.
Yeah, well, and quite frankly, the dolphins and the whales are probably smarter than us. They just do it in a way that we don't associate because we're thinking from the primates' way of thinking, from the human perspective. So in terms of species and civilizations out there,
but again, what do you mean by intelligence? Because are we saying who can like create an iPhone without opposable thumbs? Or are we talking about, because like for all we know, as an example, the dolphin thing and the whale thing, like they might have higher. I'll shout out Morgan Berna. Emotional intelligence. Like, they have high EQ. Yeah. Like they may be like they might sit there. Their whole day is just getting some food and swim around the ocean and like. But to them, they might be communicating deep existential philosophies through their little signals, and like that's their entire day. Exactly. And they don't need to go like create an economy with a job and this and that to have purpose. And like maybe they have different egoic understandings where they're not trying to like vie for the attention of a certain of the other gender so that they can procreate. Like maybe there's this weird like, oh, it's your turn to mate, your turn. I don't know. I'm just using my imagination here. Like
TikToks to get dates. And
exactly.
Actually, speaking of Star Trek, I don't know, Return of Spock or whatever. They actually touched this a little bit, where the whales were actually communicating with the species.
That was Star Trek 4, Voyage Home.
Yeah, there you go. They touched on this where humpback whales were communicating with a species from a far off part of the galaxy. And they sent probes in to find out why they suddenly disappeared, why the communication stopped.
The probe essentially was interacting with whales in the prehistoric times, and it went off what they thought was a day, but they came back and it was all like billions of years, and they're like, wait, where the fuck are all the whales? And then that's why Kirk and Spock had to commandeer the fucking Klingon bird of prey, and literally go backwards through time through shooting themselves around the sun. And I don't know the whole that thing is so awesome, but at the same time, so I'm like you guys literally problem solve all of that. Like the time travel wasn't enough of like a most awesome thing you just solved. Now you went back to specifically 1984 to get 2 humpback whales. Like when I just go back over that plot, like it was like it's a great movie. William Shatner's amazing, but I was like again, like that was like there's so many more things you could have solved if you literally discovered time travel just now. Like so you really, you know what I mean? Like I mean, well, okay, I guess they're trying to save their time. I guess they needed the whales. I don't know, man. It just seems like a lot more could have been done because you literally are space cops at this point.
Well,
like,
no,
time
okay,
cops.
so,
like,
okay, that's branching into creating alternative realities. Because
Yeah.
as soon as you change one thing, you change everything. Arguably.
we just watched Endgame Marvel movie recently. They said that if you when you rechange like a timeline, it's not linear. It's like if we went back in time and destroyed Hitler, it doesn't mean this doesn't exist. This keeps existing. It's just that you just branch off and create branch off timelines.
Yeah, you
like
create new branches.
yeah, like so that like again, but I'm a dum who just was nodding my head like, oh, is that actually how it works? I thought it was the other way. So I'm assuming what they said the second time now is the correct one. So but someone's gonna come with a third explanation where I'm like, well, I literally don't know on any of this in a manner that I can even fucking contribute to a conversation. So like I'm assuming you guys do because you're saying it so confidently.
But until DARPA comes out and says, yeah, we've got time travel, we don't know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, the Fermi paradox is that ongoing issue. I mean, it's the assumption that we make as humans that if we don't see it and hear it the way we understand it, it doesn't exist. So there are species. I'm just going to say mathematically, it's impossible that there isn't other intelligent life in the universe and within our galaxy. There could even be intelligent life in the greater context of intelligence in our own solar system. We just don't know it because we don't see it and perceive it, or we're just not there yet.
Like, well, even just with your imagination. But like, even, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, and I saw Toy Story, I literally was like, I thought my toys were alive when I was a kid until I grew up enough and I noticed as all my interactions with them, like, they never reacted back unless I made the voice, you know. But as I got older and older and older, I'm like, I don't feel like making this voice. And next thing you know, the doll wasn't real to me anymore. And I remember thinking in my head, like, but the fact that someone wrote this means collectively a child's imagination, like, would have created in their head just as real of a conscious being as a real conscious being, you know. And it's like, but then it leaves to imagination, like, actually, I mean, close your eyes at night. Like, are these things real? Like, you know, like, you know, it's like who the fuck knows, right? I mean, like we actually to think that we're that intelligent, we're not that intelligent.
No,
we're not that intelligent at all.
No, and as kids, we start getting programmed based on what our environment and the adults around us teach us.
Yeah,
and the creative imagination is capable of so much, and that is almost, in my humble view, as a kid, we're probably more in touch with the quantum of things than as adults we are, because our perception of reality is still being molded. Well,
we're also, as we become adults, insanely distracted by pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. It's
to our
like,
detriment.
Yeah, like as a child, like you did not have hormones yet. You weren't after sex. And then you weren't trying to do things in any context of a mating hierarchy. Like, you literally just hung with people because you liked them. Like, hey, you want to play? You want to go to the park? Yeah, great. Like, we're playing now. It's like you weren't, but as an adult, the instant those hormones hit, there's this weird, like, I need to get laid. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, how do you get laid? And it's like,
our decision process all changed.
And then you just like going through, fumbling through the whole thing until you figure out a pattern of, oh, this is what it takes to get laid. You have to, whatever, like, be masculine and make money and whatever, or maybe not masculine. I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, I understand what you mean by the kid is actually probably more in touch with the more important things. You know, like, it's like that.
Potentially,
like, yeah. Like, the adult is in touch with it slightly, but he's literally carrying this bag every day of like distractions.
Yeah,
you know?
and our programming and our conceptions of what is versus what is possible, and ego plays a part in that too.
Yeah.
And ego can be a good thing, but it can be a really, really bad thing.
Mm.
So, you know, I think as kids, if we can tap into our creative selves as kids and utilize that creativity as adults, we can accomplish so much. We come up with brilliant ideas.
Yeah. Well, that's why that there's always that theory by the writers of science fiction that the ultimate form is that big head alien with a weak body, because it's like you're at a point now where everything exists as this big intellectual
Yeah.
ball on your head, like called a brain, but it's like, but because of that you can, like, because even Star Trek, like the first theory of when they're in the menagerie planets, it's like the big headed aliens don't even use their mouth anymore. They have these big brains and veins coming out of it because their brains now allow them to communicate telekinetically like this, and then their bodies are all flimsy because they no longer need hormones because they're not trying to mate in the classic way of like of like being a stronger testosterone higher being and going around fucking clubbing the other one, like it's like so it's I don't know, man. It's but the kid, think about it, a kid is that advanced alien just without the EQ, really. Doesn't have the emotional intelligence
in some
yet.
ways. And I think as a species and as a society on our planet, we're trying to dip into that and become that bigger brain.
Are we really trying to do that, or is a select few trying? Because I think most people, if the world told them not, hey guys, you know what, everyone's tired, no one try any harder, we're just going to keep things as it is and like just get good at things as it is.
Here's
like I think
universal income, go get high.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. quite literally describing Serb.
Okay, well, I'm trying to have the positive perspective that humanity is actually trying to become more, but
maybe 10% of the population, maybe.
Possibly,
yeah.
Possibly. But I think to a degree, whether it's fragmented or not, we're pushing, at least in part, as a species and as a society, somewhat globally, to become more.
Yes.
And so, and where my head's going with that is that we have these synchronous moments with people that are in our lives. We can read them. We can suddenly have a feeling about somebody. They could be 2,000 kilometers away, or they could be like right next to each other. And suddenly you get that sense of, hey, what the hell was that? Or yeah, okay, or you speak the same thing, or you're suddenly in the same parallel. There's an evolutionary element going on. I think that's partially being assisted by technology.
Now, Ferrell, do you think this has happened before, over and over in our society and civilization? Because like the Earth is like what, 1 billion years old. Like, do you like? There's no way this is the first time we hit these pinnacles. Like, I'm thinking it's happened over and over, and then we destroyed ourselves over and over and over.
Well, actually, you ever watch Ancient Aliens and things like that? Ancient history.
I love ancient history. Like, well, we're on that already. The pyramids. Like, you're telling me there wasn't an advanced civilization there building that thing?
We used to think that there were only those pyramids, but now we find out there are pyramids all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in some cases, they're in key points of power or energy intersections with the geomagnetic structure of the Earth.
I truly believe that we are actually in like, I think that as an example, I think that the Earth went through like literally 100 times they went and became a super civilization. We're like the 101th time going through it now, and if we were to compare us to the 100, we're kind of like the best example I got would be like in basketball. Like, do you think any team now was actually better than the Bulls in the 90s kind of thing? Like, some people would be like, well, yeah, LeBron and all these guys. I'm like, let's be honest. If all circumstances were the same, you're putting this era of coddled players in the 90s where, they literally had like the Jordan rules where they're literally basically killing him on the court and like knocking his teeth out. It's like, come on, man. Like, it's not even the same game. And back then they had way less technology, way less advantages, and they had to find a way to tough out everything and make it to the game. Like, it's like, so I'm thinking we might be like the 101st attempt at super civilization, but within the rankings, we might be like out of a 10 places, we might be being number one is the best. Like, we're maybe number fucking 7. Like we might have invented computers over and over and over again. It fucked it up over and over and over.
Computers aren't a new thing. In fact, there were ancient computers in was it 1000 BC or something like that?
1000 BC there was computers?
Well, not like we have.
Wait a minute,
but computer. The Greeks were working on computing. But it wasn't computers like what we have. Like, it wasn't
did they have digital technology and
in terms of that,
Wi-Fi and
not that we know of. But the thing is, technology like that laptop, if you shoved it in the ground and left it for 5,000 years, it would be gone.
Yeah.
It'd be just gone.
Yeah.
It would either completely rot, get chewed up by the microorganisms, etc. There'd be little bits of what we just wouldn't be able to make sense of.
Yeah.
So go back 50 to 100,000 years,
and you have shit everywhere.
Yeah, you have tectonic movement and so forth. You have natural disasters. It's quite possible. And if you look at Sanskrit writing and the Vermanas and the flying ships and
they're starting to think all these sketchings of like in Egyptian inside these structures where it shows like, so it looks like someone's reading a book. Like, they're starting to theorize maybe they're looking at a tablet, you know what I mean, like an iPad. like maybe. And then these pyramids might be left over like their version of a 5G tower. There might have been fucking floating ships, man. Like we don't know. Like we can't be that arrogant and think this is the best and the first time.
And science fiction's played with that. It's called Stargate.
Yeah. So. I love Stargate. Yeah, I never watched the show, but I love the original movie with Kurt Russell. Fucking love that movie.
Yeah, and then through the series, they played with that stuff all the time in terms of the technology. Just would present it in different ways. I mean, it's quite possible. It's arrogant of us to think that we are the most intelligent humans that have existed.
No, we're not. We're idiots.
In many ways, we are.
Yeah. We're barely smart, man. Like, come on. Like, how many hypocritical behaviors do you have in your life? I have loads. So
I should be dead.
Yeah, same here. Like, nothing makes sense. Like, we're drinking beer right now. Like, yes, I literally have a business that sells alcohol, but alcohol is definitely terrible for you. And no, maybe not. I mean, allegedly. It's like, but yet I'm into fitness by drinking alcohol. I mean, how many more hypocrisies can I point out? And Yet, if I was trying to change any of these aspects, it's a excruciating process to become the other version of whatever the hell I end up becoming. In space, though, Ferrell, do we have evidence of people of maybe civilizations that are from the Earth that maybe gone up before? Or are they discovering they see nothing new up there? Like, have they discovered, hey, that looks like that could have been a fucking satellite, like a 100,000-year-old satellite?
In Earth orbit, there is something called black knight. Which, unless it's a military thing that's been around there for a very long time, nobody apparently knows what it is. Whether it's left over from another civilization, another species.
What is it? What is black knight?
It's a satellite, because anything that's floating around the Earth, whether it's a rock or something man-made, it becomes a satellite. Mm-hmm. So by all definitions, the moon's a satellite, but it's big ass rock.
Yeah.
So the Black Knight, I don't know the exact size of it, but it is an obscure satellite object that nobody, at least publicly, knows what the hell it is.
Okay. It's a big, obscure object, you said. How does it look? I'm trying to picture this. How big is it? What are we talking here?
Well, maybe I can grab a picture of it for you, but it is...
Pull it up, Jamie. There's no Jamie here.
It is basically kind of looks like a sliver of stone. Black Knight... See if I can pull it up here. Come on, Butterfingers. Hmm. There are pictures which people claim.
All right. No. Okay. What the?
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like a car almost.
Yeah, it's
okay. And this was floating around or falling into our
no, it's in orbit.
It's in orbit.
It's in orbit.
What this sounds very ignorant of me, but why don't we try to capture that thing and study it?
That's a good question.
We can keep taking photos of it.
That's a NASA question. Huh. That's a Soviet space program. That's a Chinese space program question. So is it a military object? Is it something that has been captured by the Earth and in orbit? Publicly, we don't know. Privately, our creative imagination is going to fly on that.
Ferrell, I'm going to wind this down right
Sure.
now.
We've really gone in different directions.
Yeah. So much for these. No, but obviously, great conversation. Whenever you're free, let's do this again. And
sure.
Dive more. And
by all means, and we can stay a little more on point.
Yeah, that's true. I think, there's just so much, this is such a vast thing you're involved in, right?
That's
and
the thing.
My imagination just went wild on me here.
Well, to sum up the space economy, it will be the dominant economy by mid to end of century. It'll be the economy that really is controlling everything and will influence everything that's going on Earth. Mm-hmm. All the resources we need are in the asteroid belt and the Kuiper belt, which is on the outside of the primary planets. The resources that we can get from Venus, from Titan, from Mars, from Europa, from the asteroid belt is everything we'll ever need as a species, at least as far as we understand what we need right now. So
literally the entire periodic table of elements is up there.
And things that we don't know about that we'll add to the table.
Fuck, that's incredible. What about Shit. Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. I lost my train of thought. I literally, as I was trying to formulate my thought, 10 other, like, ask him this, ask him this. I was like, now I'm just like jumbled in like gridlock, almost like trying to fit like 3 fat guys through a door all of a sudden.
Well, speaking of a fat guy, here's an example of one aspect of the space economy projecting forward. There are hedge funds and mining corporations and resource traders and so forth that are very, very interested in a asteroid that NASA targeted and described as being worth roughly $100 trillion in terms of resources.
Where is this asteroid?
It's in the belt. It's reachable with the technology we have.
Okay, so shouldn't a bunch of nerds be getting together to try to like go to every world government? Like, look, stop trying to get on a cusp of World War III. Like, let's all collectively get the fuck up there and get these resources.
There are corporations, and there's a UN space office. There are government departments. There are private corporations. There are, even in the Web3 crypto world, there are DAOs that are trying to put stuff together to create funding and so forth. Everybody that's paying attention to this stuff is trying to get things to go up there.
Okay, I'm gonna end it on this segment here. I want your opinion on this kind of just whatever, like aliens. Like, what's your beliefs on that thing? What do you think they are? Like, do you think they're out there? Like, do you think aliens are responsible for intelligence? Like, like all of that stuff. Because short version for me, I actually truly believe, I do believe in evolution. I truly believe aliens came down and gave us little nuggets of info to help us evolve along. Like, but they're not interfering directly. Literally, like Star Trek world, where we're like in Star Trek world, they're observing other planets, but they won't reveal their presence because the rule of the Prime Directive was always, until that civilization naturally, without interference from any other advanced civilization that's in the Federation or whatnot, discovers warp drive. Like, that is the key, because if that civilization independently discovers warp drive, then that means we can let them in on the rest of the secret. Like, hey, like, because now you can travel around and see us.
All right, so we'll take a human perspective.
What do you think?
We'll take a human perspective on that. And
the microphone.
We'll take a human perspective on that, and if we look at it from the Star Trek perspective, we are the Klingons without the warp drive. Do you really want us in the galaxy causing all sorts of problems?
Well, continuing on that theory, the Klingons are a strong race in the Star Trek lore. We might be weak with our weaponry. Like, we're using gunpowder still. It might be to them like using bows and arrows, but they have machine guns.
But our nature as a species and our maturity is that we're ready to kill ourselves. We're ready to cause harm to get what we want. Would another species that is more advanced or more unified want us interacting with them?
Again, your imagination automatically is defaulting from like a more benevolent race. Like, they might be worse than us, and it's just a little segment of their nerd scientific population that is coming out to explore. They might be in part of some galactic conflict, and it's like, like, we don't know, right?
We don't know.
It's no different than everyone's depiction of, like, think of it this way: we're aliens. We go to another planet. It's like, they keep thinking in their head, like, I saw a human alien. They might draw a very simple looking, like, white guy, but then all of a sudden they didn't realize on our planet there's Asians and blacks and browns and indigenous and like men and women and LGBTQ and like the whole plethora, at the point where they're just like, what? Like, it's like it's funny how your imagination always defaults to a smarter, benevolent race that has no factions in it.
Because I think maybe because that's where we want to go.
Yeah.
But the other thing, too, is that we could be an Eden of sorts, which is going to touch on the Bible per se, but we could be an Eden within our galaxy amongst a few, compared to a lot of planets where they're not as diverse in life and resources.
What was sorry, can you repeat that last part?
That we may be an Eden of sorts.
Yeah.
And that we may be a much more diverse planet compared to a lot of these other planets.
Diverse planets. Okay, I got my thought here.
Okay.
Like, I forget where I learned. I did not make this up. I don't remember where I learned it from, but I forget. Maybe it's a religion. Maybe it's Scientology. But like, there's this thought that like there used to be planets full of every single species we see, and then they grouped us together and threw into Earth. Like, so there's a planet literally of Chinese people, a planet just of Scottish people.
It's possible.
Yeah, there's a planet just with cats and dogs, and that's why we see so much fucking variation, right? It's like it might actually be like it all got thrown on Earth, like, or Earth is this massive super pot, a melting pot, because that would explain a lot. and then maybe genetics didn't mix for a long time, and the aliens just came down and just slightly tweaked some certain biological traits and patterns and biological engineering, and all of a sudden now we can mate. Like maybe back in the day, a white person trying to bang an Asian person doesn't have to procreate at all. Like just like from what I understand, certain animals can procreate with each other and make us a new hybrid species, but some can't. Right? Like, wasn't it something like a dog can't bang a polar bear and make anything, from what I understand? Weird example, but like
I'm just thinking that it's kind of like that one that was that concern about a cheetah getting into the Rockies and mating with a cougar. You get a chigger. So.
Okay, but they're still kind of close, right?
Yeah.
But
maybe one scary kitty. But
man, that word you just used, by the way, that is also like when an Asian dude and a black guy like get together and form some kind of.
So wow. So in terms of our diversity compared to other things out there, that's the thing about the human imagination.
Yeah.
We let ourselves run and we get weird shit.
Yeah. So. but I mean, I think it's been scientifically proven though that like certain animal species literally cannot create a hybrid, but some can, right? I learned that somewhere, unless I'm out to lunch. Like unless are you telling me
well, it's like you can't get a dog and a crocodile to create something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
wait, yeah, no, like we have to stop thinking about that because one is a reptilian, one's a mammal.
Yeah.
But even in the mammal verse, like not all genes can mix. I think there's some kind of proven like it literally like won't it would just like nothing will happen. It would just it would just kind of like it's almost like a science like it's just nothing happens. Just like the fact that there is interracial mixing or whatever, it's because like the genes are close enough and that it can actually
have
go
common ground.
Yeah. So then when I think about things like a space and like it's like this theory that there was a planet with just dogs and a planet with just Asians and a planet with just like white people, it's like then we got all thrown down here. I'm like, fucking seems kind of like possible because it's no different than us grabbing a bunch of like we went to a pet store and we start collecting the turtle and a rabbit and then and a bird and a dog and we just kind of like in a gymnasium threw them all together and like let's see what happens.
Well, that's one of the beautiful things about humanity wanting to explore into space. We're gonna find all sorts of wild shit.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it should be about what we can do to better ourselves.
Yes, it should be done for the forces of good, but in Star Wars world, I think that applies to the very fabric of existence. I think there's a polarity. I think that good and evil, up and down, black and white, left and right, side. I think it's we can try to find things to do good, but I think ultimately we'll just, when it gets too boring, we'll just default to doing some things bad, just for kicks.
I hope not.
No, same here.
But yeah. But yeah, I know we really diversified in terms of what we were talking about, but in terms of the space economy, there is so much that's going to happen over the next few years. For example, in 2040, NASA would like to see structures getting built on the moon using the rigor. I can't pronounce it now. Basically, the material that makes up the moon dust, which is actually very, very sharp shards of broken up material. And they want to have.
It's not sand up there.
It's not sand. It's rough shards of glass, rock, all sorts of materials.
What if the moon was literally just some big garbage dump and then just compacted into what we see now?
Then we're screwed.
Oh man.
But
dude, I want so badly for the space economy to be like within my reach because I'm a space nerd too in many ways, and I just feel like we could do so much better. I feel like that would end a lot of the beefs on this planet if people would just like the real battles up there, like exploring that shit.
Yeah,
who fucking cares about Russia and Ukraine's borders and China and Taiwan's history and fucking like left wing, right wing crap. We literally have a whole other galaxy to explore, and I think that would merge everyone together. I would hope so.
Well, there are accords for this stuff, but it's a question of whether or not people are going to behave. I mean, you have the Artemis Accords, which China didn't sign on to, but it's probably more about what their intentions are for what they want to do at the moon. But the Artemis Accords is about utilizing the moon collectively together. And there are international treaties around that space is a providence for all of humanity. But again, we have to treat each other with respect and understanding. So
consistently,
yeah. Are we going to be that mature?
I don't know, man. We have to conquer our own issues here first before I think we can send people up there, because otherwise they're just going to do the same shit up there they do down here, just at that scale. You know, I mean, that's what I think anyway.
But the benefits and economic benefits will drive us there before we grow up.
I think so too. I think there'll be a golden age, but then as that thing becomes norm, then it'll default again to fucking classic competitive chimpanzee bullshit done in space.
Yeah, and I would think by the end of the century we'll have a colony on Mars, we'll stuff on the moon, and then we'll run into politics and self-determination and all that fun shit. It's natural, and some will be corporations, some will be government, some will just be whatever.
Well, that's what the explorers in Europe thought. Like, didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, in the New World, as you will, for like North America, it's like, and it literally just developed a whole new system of living called capitalism versus like imperialism or like having a monarch and stuff. But it's like, but now we are in 2023. Like a lot of good, like we have food, shelter, clothing, and drinks. But at the same time, like everything's so weird and touch and go and fickle and like on the verge of destruction. Like,
yeah, but we go through these cycles.
We do go through these cycles. Yeah. Okay, Ferrell, I'm gonna put all Copernic's information on the show notes. Ferrell's Instagram will be in the show notes. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. There's just so much to cover here. Like this, just keep going and going, and which I want to. So. Okay. Next time, maybe we'll dial in on like 4 or 5 super topics, and then just keep it there.
We'll keep it there. Sounds good.
Because totally. yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's so much to learn and talk about, and it's just we can have a whole show just on one topic, let alone the thousands.
You should probably just do your own podcast here on this stuff and just dive into it weekly, and then
I guess
and I'll just be gracious enough to have you on our show again from time to time and. But all right, Ferrell. Okay, we'll talk soon anyway again. Okay, everyone, have a great night and bye.
See you guys.